It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome a living legend of the collegiate and professional gridiron. After a stellar college career at Grambling State, where he played for the legendary Eddie Robinson, he went on to a memorable run in the NFL. He was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 1978 NFL Draft, but his best moments came while playing in Washington, D.C. He will always be remembered for the clinic he put on in Super Bowl 22, where he also made history as the first African-American quarterback to win the big game.
Fake to Smith. Williams deep for Sanders again. Makes the catch at the 10. Touchdown. Oh. And he lost it for Didier. And as Frank said, it's getting to be Didier time. Touchdown.
And again, Doug Williams, he is having a dream day for a quarterback.
And Doug Williams will run off one more play, and then the celebration will begin.
This ends what has been a class week for Doug Williams in particular.
And Doug joins this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN right now with your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. I hope the week is well. Of course, I want to pay respects as yesterday was September 11th, just remembering that great day in this country, remembering all of those lives lost. I hope to hopefully today bring you a little bit of joy. Of course, we're all getting ready for football. We saw that Thursday night football game. I decided to bring in the big guns today to help me talk football, the latest and greatest. I am so excited to welcome in this man, especially as the daughter of a Grambling. It's a true honor and pleasure to welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, none other than Doug Williams, a former Super Bowl MVP. And of course, he's currently the Senior Vice President of Player Development for the Washington football team. None other than Doug Williams will be joining me. We'll be talking the latest and greatest in football. We'll answer your questions. We'll talk HBCU sports and so much more. So I don't want to waste any more time. I know you all are so excited for this one. I'm excited for it. And as always, thanks to the loyal fans for always joining me on the show. So without further ado, please help me welcome in none other than Doug Williams. Doug, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, what an introduction. I'm good. I'm good. Just sitting there listening to you and the music that brought you on, man. That's my day.
I appreciate that so much. A special thanks to my team, Doug. We had to do right by you. It's not every day we get to welcome in someone of your caliber, so I feel good about that.
You did well.
And I'd like to start off, Doug, with all of my guests. How are you feeling? How are you doing? I like to do a wellness check because, of course, there's so much currently going on in the world.
No, you're right. Doing well. You know, the good part about it, coming to work every day and everything is checked out just about every day. You know, we take a test every day, and I'm lucky and fortunate enough to not have tested positive and coming in here and trying to get through, get to the first game. You know, we figure if we can get to the first game, we can get to the second game.
Yes, we got to keep going. We need that trajectory because we want Washington football. And I have to ask you, so you talked about doing testing every day. How was that process like? How have you and the players adapted to that? Because I'm sure it's not the most comfortable thing, but of course we know it's what you all have to do to put on the football field.
It's not the most comfortable thing, but it's necessary.
Right.
And I think everybody knows it's a certain time that everybody has to have it in. If you don't get your test, you don't get your ticket to come in the building. Once you get the test, they give you a ticket to come in the building. So make sure you've taken your test. So the players have done a tremendous job of coming in every day and doing what they have to do to make sure that keep everybody around themselves and everybody around safe. I think that's important.
Yes, we want to keep them safe. We talked about it. Football's right around the corner. Doug, we finally made it. Football's tomorrow. It's a big game tomorrow.
It's past the corner. It's down the road.
It's coming. We're excited. We're, of course, playing the Philadelphia Eagles. They're coming into town. So before we talk the game, I have to ask you, Doug, have you gotten used to saying yet the Washington football team, right? You can no longer say play for that.
The Washington football team has really grown on us.
Yeah.
It's fortunate enough that it was on time, and the other word was slur, and it had to go. And I don't think the guys or the coaches or anybody has had any problem whatsoever. And to be honest with you, I kind of like that old name, Washington football team, because it represents the DMC, and I think that's a good name. And the most important thing is the players.
Exactly.
Don't worry about the logo. It's the team as a whole. You go out there and play for whoever you play for.
Exactly. It's the same team. The fans are the same, right? It's just a different name, but the people in those uniforms, some have changed. For the most part, we know this team, and of course, being in this area, we know football is king. But I had to ask you because I know some players are still getting used to it. But again, it's just one small change. And as you said, it was a slur, and I think the team has moved forward in the right direction, which we're all super excited about. Moving forward in the right direction, Doug, you have new people around you with Jason Wright and Julie Donaldson. How has that addition to the front office just been for you being a part of this organization?
Well, I didn't know Jason, but I knew Julie because she'd been around and been working with the press since I've been here. She's going to do a wonderful job. And the conversation that I've had with Jason, he has great ideas, and his most important job is taking this whole organization in the right direction, along with the new coaches and the new coaching staff. So it's basically a brand new type of situation, but at the same time, we got a lot of players that's been here, and I think the players has bought into what's going on and realized that, we got to turn the ship around and get some new sales and get on down the road.
Exactly. Getting on down the road is what we want to do. And I think what this team will do best. So, of course, tomorrow is a pretty big game. We're excited to talk about it. Week 1, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on this team, of course, to perform. We know how the team finished last season. You, of course, had a chance to be at training camp. Talk about what you liked coming out of training camp and what good things you might see in tomorrow's game against those Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, the unfortunate thing about training camp, we didn't get a chance to do preseason, see a lot of the young guys. So they had to do everything within themselves and against each other. But I think when you see this team, I do think that we picked the right guys to be on the 53 and practice squad. And as a young team, that's the good part about it. But it's a young talented team. Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be some growing pains, but I think the way that they perform in training camp, they hustle, they worked hard, they worked long, diligently. I'm looking forward to the game on tomorrow because we need to know exactly what we're working with, and we get a chance to see a lot of young guys step up, get an opportunity to step up, and I think that's make your team grow for the young guys to step up and mix in with the guys that's already been here 2 or 3 years because we're not that old. When you think about it, the defensive line as a whole, if you take Ryan Kerrigan off that defensive front, you wouldn't have nobody up there 26 years old, which means that's a young team. And,
babies.
So that's a lot to grow there. And on offense, it's the same way. With the young quarterback and the young running back, the receivers. You got Moses and Sheriff. Basically, them some old guys, and they're not old.
Right, I got to keep up with the young guys now.
Yeah. So it's an interesting time for the team, and tomorrow give us a good head start to know exactly what we're going to be working with down the road.
I love that. Exactly. It'll be a tell. All of us are ready for the football season. And just curious, what message have you had for the young guys? I mean, it's a big game. Of course, situation is so different this year, playing with no fans tomorrow, which I think Washington fans are still getting used to. What has your message been for them to still show up and perform to their best selves in tomorrow's game and moving forward?
Well, of course, it's nothing like playing in front of your fans. And Washington has always had some of the greatest fans. It's nothing
Yeah.
like that. But I think as a player also, the mentality should be between the lines. And because the fans not going to be there, don't mean that you don't perform up to your capability. And
Exactly.
I think mentally they got to look at it from who's in between the line. It's you and the other team. And
Right.
you got to go out and play your game. And if we got to pipe some fan noise in, we'll do that. You make the play, we'll take care of the noise.
We want them to feel it, right? You feed off that energy. And like you said, DC has some of the most spirited fans, right? And so it's like taking that away. Because I think back to that Thursday night game, Doug, and I'm sure you watched it. I feel like it did give the Chiefs an advantage, right? Having the fans there. I mean, we saw it.
You know what? It was until, for me, it was good to see the fans in there until we got to the part when the two teams interlocked with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, when they came together like that, I said to myself, it might have been better if they didn't have any fans, because we wouldn't have gotten an opportunity to have the players demean like that.
Right.
I think that was the unfortunate part of having fans. But, fans can do whatever they want to do, but it didn't look good on that standpoint. But you want fans in the stands regardless. But you just hope that they look at what the players did before the game was a positive, where everybody coming together in unity. And that's what we need in this country and in this league and everywhere else.
I love that you said that. Unity is what we need, as you said, and we saw the players locking arms during that moment of silence. And I'm glad you brought that up, because especially since you were a quarterback in this league, a Black quarterback at that, you've seen what's happened in this country. You've seen what's transpired, Doug. And I think, I have to ask you, the NFL is trying to make strides, I think, towards social justice. We see what they're stenciling in the end zones. We saw the messages before the game. You talked about players locking arms. We know Lift Every Voice and Sing is now a part of NFL games. Do you think the league is moving in the right direction as we as a country fight forward for social justice?
Well, I think the NFL, the WNBA, the NBA, World Soccer, tennis, everybody has the message. I think the most important part is that regular public gets the same message about this is the USA. It's supposed to be the strongest country in the world.
Right.
And when other countries are protesting what's happening in our country, that tell me your house is not clean. We need to do a better job, and hopefully we can turn that around, and they look at this whole situation from a positive and realize that we all here, we all bleed red. And at the end of the day, the more we get together, the better this country is going to be. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's what the NFL and all the other sports leagues are trying to do, to realize that, this huddle is not just a Black huddle. It's the white guys in that huddle. So it's not just going to take the Black population to straighten this thing out. We need the white people to do the same thing. Just like when I look at this as the second coming of the civil rights movement. And the best thing about that is so diverse. It ain't just Black. It's Latinos. It's white. It's Black. Everybody is out there for the same cause. And I think if you turn your television on and look at it from that standpoint, you will realize that, something needs to be done in this country. And forget about it. We know we got some bad apples. Everybody got bad apples.
Right.
And at the same time, it's more positive coming out these protests than it is the bad. And, some people tend to just look at the bad, but not looking at the positive. And I think that's the direction that we're trying to get people to understand.
I love to hear that. And that makes me so excited again that you're with this Washington football team. And as a team internally, it makes me think, have you been a part of those conversations? And what have those conversations been like as a team decides how to move forward to best represent, of course, show up as a team to talk about, of course, police brutality, social injustice, and social justice? What have those conversations been like? And how have the guys kind of galvanized around being part of this moment?
The good thing about this, because we've had conversations, we had our own little town hall Zoom among the teams and all the workers here. It's good because you get a chance to hear people open up about experiences. And the good part for most of the Black guys don't have a problem sharing theirs, but at the end of the day, the good part about it, we got some of the white workers and white players who stand up and talk about it. That's where it starts. And it makes you feel good that you're in a building that everybody can look at it from the same perspective and find a common ground and making sure that we all on the same page to right this ship.
I love that. We want to be on the same page, Doug, because I think the world has always needed to move forward, right, and progress. And of course, I think we're in the greatest country in the world, but it's like a great family. Every great family has its problems, right? And we have to fix that to become stronger together. And as you said, I think it takes all of us. And Doug, I just would love if you could pull on any of your personal experiences. I mean, talk about just growing up and, I mean, is the world today, did you ever think that we'd be in this moment in time, Doug, where we would see the removal of Confederate flags, the removal of Confederate statues, removal of Confederate names from schools? Did you ever think we'd reach this moment, especially here in 2020?
Well, let me say this. Like I say, I'm old enough to remember the first civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And if you had asked me that same question back then, I would have said no.
Yeah.
Growing up in the South and in Louisiana, and I've seen things that when I talk to these young guys and tell them what some of the things that happened to my neighborhood and what we saw, they wouldn't understand it. But to see the power that you have today to be able to remove, and see, people don't understand. They look at that rebel flag and those generals, whoever it is on them horses, as, to me, as a power struggle, not understanding what it does to a lot of people, and realize what those people really did back in the day. And if you had not walked in the average black man's shoes, and that's hard for you to understand. And I understand that. But it's not hard for you to just sit back and read history and realize what has happened in the history, to realize, what, man, that is bad. And I understand why they're out there protesting and why they want to change things. That's all we're looking for people to look at it have an open mind and look at it from that standpoint.
I love that. Have an open mind and look at it from this standpoint. And Doug, since this is a live show, I do want to take a couple questions from fans. Doug, he wants to ask you, what do you think lawmakers need to do to end police brutality and social injustice?
Well, we all know that's a tough one. My thing is this, this is my opinion.
Right.
Whether anybody like it or not, ain't nothing I can do about it. But until, I'm going to go all the way back to George Floyd. That was on camera. That's clear as day. Don't tell me you got to do an investigation, because if there wasn't a police officer, they would have arrested that person.
Right.
Until they started arresting police when they do something that cruel.
Yeah.
And take him to jail like everybody else, and wait his turn, find out if he's innocent when he go to trial, that's fine. Right. But if he not, do what you're supposed to do. Until that happens, the trust factor, especially for black folks, is not going to be there. When you can see it wide open on your neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and then you're going to tell me that he died of an overdose, drugs, or whatever. Nah, come on, let's be real. Especially when you see it with your own eyes. Right. And it's unfortunate. And took stuff like that, and that's not going to change by marching. That's going to change in the Capitol and the legislature and stuff like that. That's the only way it's going to change. And hopefully we can get to that point.
Yeah, I hope we can. I have faith. I feel like America's hopefully moving in the right direction. But, again, none of us can forget that video of George Floyd being killed in front of us. And then, of course, we saw the shooting of Jacob Blake. We saw stoppage of the NBA. And for me, Doug, it's been so powerful to see players. I've always said players need to find their purpose and use their platform for that purpose. And I think we're seeing that today.
You say that, and all I think about is when I was playing years ago, if we had that power, from the time I got to Tampa in 1978 to all the way up here, and knowing some of the guys that I played with, if we had the power that these young guys have to be able to have a platform and to do what they're doing, I know it would have been done a long time ago. But we didn't have that power because you had so many people in control. Mm-hmm. Today, the players, I think, have a little more control than allowed us to stand up and rise up above all the things that have happened and say, hey, this is not right, and this is how we would like for it, and we want you to join us to make sure we can get it right.
I love that. Like you said, just having that power is so powerful. Yeah. Just staying on this topic, I do have to ask you at least one more question on it. When you hear those people that say, hey, shut up and dribble, or just be an athlete, I know, I'm shaking my head too, Doug, believe me. But to those out there that just think athletes are supposed to, well, we just want you to do your job. We don't want you to put in, your personal opinions or throw this social justice to our face. What do you say to people like that, especially since you have, both experience as a player and now you're on the executive level?
Well, I'm going to be as straight as I probably can. Yeah. That's the slave mentality.
Mhm.
Just shut up and do your job.
Right.
That was done years ago. My dad probably went through it, and his dad and their dad. That's the way it was back then. Basically,
Right.
you couldn't even talk; you just worked.
Mhm.
But now it's a different ball game, and they felt like, I think a lot of people feel like because you get paid, you shouldn't be able to have a right, or you shouldn't have a insight on what's right or what's wrong. Just take your check and go home. That's not how it's done.
Not at all. Not at all. Like you said, because if we go to our normal jobs, you wouldn't want somebody to say, hey, just work. You're not supposed to have a personal opinion. But for some reason, when it comes to sports athletes, some people want them to be robots. But look, at the end of the day, when they take off that uniform, especially the Black men, they are Black men in America. They have an experience, like you said, that no one can experience what it is to be a Black man in America. For me, being a Black woman in America, only a Black woman can know what that means to be.
Exactly. I think, first of all, we got to get away from the gladiator mentality.
Yeah.
We're not in that dumb age when you put a thumb down or a thumb up. It don't work that way.
Right.
We human. We just have a lot of talent, and people mix in and go out and do their job. They do their job well. That don't mean that they don't have a family at home. That don't mean that they don't cry sometime, or they have heartaches and disappointment like anybody else in this country. And I think you got to give athletes their props and their due, because they can do something extraordinary away from other people. Don't mean that they don't have feelings.
Yes, they don't. And that's the thing. They're human beings. They are human beings that are just a lot better at sports than the rest of us. That's all. That's all. Like you said, feelings and thoughts. I appreciate you touching on that, Doug. And look, the Graham fam is coming in strongly. So we have to talk Grambling State University. Oh my gosh, Doug, we don't have SWAC football. They took them away from us. How are you coping with that? How do you cope with the loss of the SWAC and just, of course, the college sports that aren't playing? Are you doing okay? You're gonna miss Grambling football now.
It's about safety. And you look at it realistic from the minority standpoint, we're the ones who's suffering a lot more than other people.
Right.
And I think it's important that they took those steps to wait and see how this pandemic really pan out in the next few months.
Right.
And they're going to have football in the spring. If they got to do it, that's fine, if it's all about safety. Because I would hate for my son to play in a game and his mother, I'm around, and grandmama and everybody come around and just so happen they all test positive because you came from a group of guys test positive. Yep. Hope that doesn't happen to the guys who are playing football, because we're playing football. Right. You would hope that, but I think at the HBCUs, from economics and a financial standpoint, they don't have the money at the Power 5 school to be able to test these guys every day to make sure we're on course and make sure nobody is positive in that group. I think that's the difference than the Power 5 schools that are going to play and some of the other schools compared to the HBCUs.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on it, like you said, because there is a huge financial difference. And Doug, look, you have some fans from the UK watching you live. You have a lot of fans, Doug. You are still that guy. But I love that you touched on that. And talking about HBCUs, something magnificent that happened, Doug. Grambling State University, the establishment of the Doug Williams Center for the Study of Race and Politics in Sports. I thought this was just magnificent news. I'm so happy it's happening for you. Just what are your goals for the center? What do you hope it does for the students?
Well, number one, I'm humble about the president and Mark Newman wanting to name the center after me. Number one, and we were fortunate enough to tag a young man who I think is talented as all outdoors. I remember I coached him at Grambling back when I was there. When Brandon Logan walked on the football field and you watched the kid leadership, you knew right then he was going places. And he's going to be our executive director, and we got an excellent board.
Big names on that board.
So it gives us an opportunity to really dive into race that's in politics and sports.
Yeah.
And so the younger people and some of us older folks can understand how it really works. That was an article, I think, yesterday I was reading in the Washington Post about, they were saying how the privileged kids at the Power 5 school, really that's in sports like tennis and tracks and all non-revenue sports, how they make it off the backs of the Black kids that go to these Power 5 schools. And I read some of the comments up under it. They don't agree with that, but they're not looking at it from a realistic standpoint. I understand football and basketball are the two sports that makes the money to
Mm-hmm.
make sure those sports on the other side are viable. So
Right.
basically, if you read the article, that's what they're saying. They're not saying that you're paying these kids. You're saying in order for them to be able to get scholarships and play sports, you got to make the money in football and basketball, which means the money's made over there, but the players are not shared in it. I think if you read it, that's what you'll get out of it. It's just a matter of understanding and opening your mind and not just close it once you read something like that. A lot of times when you read an article like that, you automatically close it because you're saying the black athletes are paying for the privileged guys to go to school. That's not what it's saying.
Right, not at all. I love that. Let me tell you, Doug, from those of us in the media, we would tell you never read the comment section. It's always brutal.
I love the comment section because you really, that's real life, because that's what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Doing this racial divide is the comments. So because some of them don't read the comment, they only put in what their mindset is, not the comment itself. Because a lot of time, what you read on the paper don't really say that. It's what your mind saying. You take it from a whole different situation than what it says. It reminds me when I was in elementary school and the teachers always try to get us to understand, don't never believe what somebody say. And they used to tell the guy in the front row something and make them tell everybody the same thing all the way around the classroom.
Yeah.
And when it get to the last person, it ain't even close to what the teacher say. So
everybody added their own thing, and you're like, wait, and the person.
So that's what we're dealing with, basically.
But so true, and I'm glad you touched on that. I want to say on the importance of HBCUs, because of course I think what you did for Grambling was huge. And I don't know if people know this, but in 1974, Grambling State had actually become the first HBCU to offer a master's degree in sports marketing. I think that's huge. Of course, we know about the careers in sports. So the center, we're going to have so many more Black kids, Black young adults getting into sports. We know how much money sports generates. And again, I think what you're doing for Grambling, what the center will do, what that amazing board you have will do, I think it's just going to speak so many values and levels. And it's so great to see how humbled you are. You talked about the person leading it, but just some of the names on the board. I mean, Cynthia Marshall, the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, Jackie McWilliams, friend of the show, commissioner of the CIAA, Joe Burrow, of course.
Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson, yes. You guys, that board list, check.
Hey, Christine Brennan.
From USA Today, yes.
And the young quarterback at the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow.
Yes.
And also we got the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, Mark.
Yes.
So we do have a good board, and we're looking forward to it. And a lot of people sometimes think that the HBCUs are no longer useful. It's very useful. It's more useful today than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of young kids, minority kids, don't get a chance to go to the power in the big schools. Matter of fact, you go to some of them campuses, that's a lot of white kids on those campuses.
Yes.
So it serves its purpose. When you go to a Black college, you're not talking about race, you're talking about education. You're trying to get a degree so you can survive out there in the real world. That's what Coach Ross always tell us. The most important thing is to walk away from here with a degree so you can support yourself when you get out there in the real world.
I love that. That's important. The real world is so important. And while we're talking about Grambling, Doug, I do have a bone to pick with you, because I think you heard this on the intro, but I am the daughter of a Grambling Knight. So I grew up with Grambling State football. But there's a guy from Southern on the Washington football team roster. How'd that happen, Doug? We have Danny Johnson on that roster. How'd you let him get through?
Danny Johnson is one of my favorites. When I was over in the personnel side, I'm the one that signed Danny Johnson to a free agent contract, and he's been here 3 years, which means he's here because he deserved to be here, not because I signed him to be here.
Yeah.
He has the talent to be on this football team, because that's the only way he'll be on it. And he's done a good job over the last 3 years to be part of this organization.
I love that you said that. And Doug, of course, the conversation always comes up, how do we get more HBCU players inside the NFL? I know Troy Vincent has made this initiative of the National Football League, but of course, many times when I'm covering HBCU sports, HBCU football programs, they're like, hey, we want attention too. We need the scouts here because there are talented players there. So how do you think we can create that pipeline so these talented players can hopefully find themselves one day achieving their NFL dreams?
Well, you say that. I was on a Zoom call on yesterday. We are actually, I'm with a committee with the league, and what we're doing, we're scouting. We got about 6 of us on the committee, and we all scouting all the HBCU top players.
Wonderful.
to try to make sure. It's just so unfortunate this pandemic has thrown us in a bind because we're not able to scout them this spring. We got to go from last year's film, and we was going to have a combine, but we can't have a combine for them because they're going to start playing in the spring, so they won't be finished in time before the draft. But let me say this: I've coached at HBCUs, and I can honestly say, from a recruiting standpoint, we lost a lot of top players over the years to the big schools. But there's always going to be 4 to 5 players that I feel like deserve an opportunity to go to camp, make a football team, or be on the practice squad. Those are guys that we got to find, and I know fans and a lot of other people think that every HBCU is loaded with players that should be in the NFL. Being a historical black college player myself, and back in the days when the Walter Paytons and the Robert Brazils and the Jerry Rices, we don't have a lot of those guys anymore. But we got to find the guys that deserve an opportunity to be here, and that's what we're trying to do.
I think that's so magnificent. And then going back to my alma mater, the University of Maryland, where Mike Loxley is leading that football team, we heard about what he's doing with the Minority Coaching Fellowship, which I think is obviously huge too, because also from HBCUs at that same expense, Doug, minority coaches are saying, hey, we want our chance too.
It's the same thing. I'm on that board. I'm on Mike Loxley's board. So they keep me around. I've been knowing Mike I've been knowing Mike since 1994. When I coached at the Naval Academy, he was up at the prep school in Rhode Island. But Mike is doing a tremendous job at Maryland, and for him to start the National Coalition of Minority Football Coaches. And it's amazing how many guys have signed up for that. And they're right. We're not just looking for the opportunity to get the minority coaches in professional football. We need to do a job in college. But I think until we get away from the buddy system, we have a buddy system here in the National Football League, and we have a buddy system in college. Sometimes you got to think outside the box and give people that don't look like you, that you don't hang with, that you don't go to dinner with, you don't drink with, an opportunity to coach because they can coach.
Yes, and that's huge. And I think that's what it's about, right? I think it's diversity at all thought levels. It's giving people an opportunity and giving them a chance. And it's just great to hear you say that. And you talked about what it was to be a black quarterback. Doug, I can't have you on the show without talking about the importance of the black quarterback, especially since many, of course, are deeming this the year of the black quarterback. Of course, Washington has Dwayne Haskins, the reigning league MVP, Lamar Jackson, who I'm sure you got to see since he's over in Baltimore. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes, what he's been able to do, that mega contract that he had. Just for you, what has it meant to see just the growth of black quarterbacks? And then it goes off the fan question. Do you think there are enough black quarterbacks in the fan?
Kelsey, let me say this. We have come a long ways. And I say that from a standpoint, when I came into the league, when they wrote an article about me, it was either Tampa Bay's black quarterback or Doug Williams, the black quarterback of Tampa Bay. That's how they started the article. Today we don't do that. We say Patrick Mahomes. We say Deshaun Watson. We say Dwayne Haskins, Russell Wilson, and Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson. That's the way it should be. That's what we want it to be. And my thing is I like good quarterback play. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I'm a Drew Brees fan. I'm a Aaron Rodgers fan. But for me, it is great to see the young minority guys, to turn that television on Thursday, and you see Deshaun Watson, and you see Patrick Mahomes, the 2 highest paid player in the National Football League.
Yes.
And they both are quarterbacks leading their football team. Yeah. That's a good feeling for me, from which I came. When I think about where I started to where these young guys are today, I'm proud of them. But I'm proud of the fact that I like good quarterbacks. And watch them play. I like good football players. but having played the position and having been a minority and watching these young guys come, now I think it's not like it used to be. It's not as prevalent. Back then, they used to say this the good old boy system, from the standpoint that they didn't think the black quarterback can do that. Now it's about who can lead your team and who can find a way to win. I think that's what we are.
I love that. Who can lead your team and find a way to win? And I think you talked about how far we've come, because you talked about One time you were the only starting Black NFL quarterback when you debuted, right, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you were also the lowest paid in the league, even behind some backups. And now we just talked about it. Patrick Mahomes is making more money than all the sports, right? Like, talk about that transgression that's happened, Doug. I mean, it's crazy to see. And of course, we're still waiting to see what Lamar Jackson will get. We saw, as you said, what Deshaun Watson will get, but it's just incredible to watch.
Well, I think that does tell you where we are, how far we have come. We still got a way to go. Not just from the quarterback standpoint, you know, head coaches, coordinators, opportunity. We got to open up those roles too. But you know, when I think about myself being the 54th paid starting quarterback in the league, and we only had 28 teams, and found out that the guy that was my backup was making more money than me. I mean, what you gonna do?
It's so crazy. But like you said, it's good to see that has happened. We got to get there. We go, Doug. But it's just, I love that you touched on that. And again, it's progress. It's progress. And talking about your playing days from a little sister, my dad said he remembers when Doug and Carlos Pennywell played together at Grambling. He was the wide receiver.
Carlos Pennywell, that was the day. Robert Wood, Michael Moore, and Carlos Pennywell.
I love that. I love that. And while we're talking about it, we might as well talk about it, Doug. Just talk about some of your favorite memories playing at Grambling State University.
Well, you know, you know, we played a couple of Division I schools. You know, people don't understand that. We had some good football players back in the day. We beat Oregon State, who plays in the Pac-12 over there. We beat Hawaii twice. We split with Temple.
Yep.
They beat us 31-30 one year. We beat them 35-32 the next year.
Yeah.
And that might be the favorite game because we was in Tokyo, Japan.
Yes.
And we was behind with 3 minutes left in the game, and we was on the 15-yard line, so we had to go 85 yards to score.
Wow.
And we went down and we scored, and we came back and beat Temple 35-32. It's right after the Heisman Trophy had been announced, and Coach Rob came into the dressing room, and he said, "I don't care what anybody say, the Heisman Trophy winner is in our dressing room." And that was probably one of the highest compliments that anybody could pay to a player. And Coach Robinson did that for me.
I absolutely love that. And of course, Coach Robinson, just his legacy, it's just forever and ever and ever. I absolutely love it. And especially tell everybody, Doug, when they come here to DC, go to the African American Museum and make sure you see his exhibit if you don't know about the greatness of he who was Coach Robinson. And I absolutely love that you touched on that. And just again, just Grambling and what you mean for it. I'm so excited for that center, what it will do. I'm a little jealous, Doug. It makes me want to go back to school so I can have a chance, maybe get another degree. But I think it's just phenomenal, the work that's going on. And staying on just exciting things for you, Doug. Also, if that wasn't enough with the center, a biopic coming out about you. A big thing. I mean, in your wildest dreams when you were growing up, I'm sure. I mean, what did that mean when you first heard that news, Doug?
Well, I had met Will Packer a long time ago. He's actually from the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah.
And the first thing he told me was how big a fan that his family was of Doug Williams when I was in Tampa. And I saw him last year when we played the Green Bay Packers. He was on the sideline, got a chance to talk to him. But I got two brothers who I call my little brothers, who are lawyers down in Orlando, and one of them know Will, and then they got away, talked to Will, and then we got together on the phone, and we talked, and he said, "Well, I'll get back to you in a few months or what have you," and we finally got together, and we struck up a deal, and unfortunately, right now with this pandemic, a lot of people are not doing a whole lot of things, but we signed a deal to do a biopic, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Will Packer, who's done some tremendous work.
Some huge movies, yes.
Unbelievable. For him to want to do a biopic of me, I think says a lot from that standpoint, and definitely make you feel humble, and the way you can't wait to sit down and watch it.
Yes, watch it with your family.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it myself.
I love that. And Doug, the biggest question, you might not have decided yet, but we got to find somebody good to play you. I don't know who we're possibly thinking. Who could do you justice in this biopic?
Well, you know what? That's the first question that's always come up. I got to look at a few more movies and see who got a little country in them. Who can? They got to have some country in them so they can do it. You just can't get one of those proper talking individuals to do me. So we'll see what happens.
I love that. We're keeping it real. Like, we're keeping it Southern, all right?
It is what it is.
I can't even think about who off the top of my head. We're going to have to think about that one, Doug. You're right. We're going to have to look at the films. And since you mentioned Tampa, I would be remiss. I got a message from Jamie Winborn, who wanted to send you a personal note. He wanted to thank you for what you did for him in Tampa, of course, former NFL player Jamie Winborn. So I wanted to make sure I passed along that message. When you hear messages like that, Doug, what does that mean for you?
Well, you know what? The most important thing in life, for me, it's not all about individuals, not about me. It's about the people, lives that you touch along the way. Because I think at the end of the day, just doing what I do, living every day, it's about people. Right. And if you don't get along and be able to deal with people and try to help somebody, you're really not doing your job. Yeah. The most important part, if you can't help them, don't hurt them. I think that's the most that everybody should live by.
I absolutely love that. And Doug, I know we're taking a lot of your time. This conversation is going so great. And I also be remiss, of course. Again, I think when we go back to football, I think everyone's asking questions about Dwayne Haskins specifically. And everyone's saying how great it is that he has someone like you in the organization, of course, has won for the organization in terms of leadership. And so, of course, we know some of the criticism he got last year, but just talking about his growth specifically and any messages you gave to him as he looks to prove himself this NFL season, of course, as a top elite passer. What messages have you guys talked about, or words of wisdom have you shared with Haskins?
Well, first of all, Kelsey, let me say that it's unfortunate that whatever talk that was bad about Dwayne Haskins last year was out there. Yeah. It's unfortunate that he even had to come to somebody. You got to give this young guy the same opportunity you give everybody else. Right. Talent-wise, and I say this, and I stand up in the world and say this: over the last 2 years, there's not a quarterback out there. It's more talented than Dwayne Haskins is. Mm-hmm. But you got to give a young guy an opportunity. Sometimes things don't work out the way you want to, but from a talent standpoint, this guy can spin the ball with the best of them. And watching him this year compared to last year, his maturity level has gone sky high. Yeah. And, you're talking about a guy that was voted as one of the captains. One thing about football, the locker room and the dressing room know who's who. Mm-hmm. And if Dwayne Haskins has not improved his leadership and maturity level between that time, the players would know. They would not have voted him captain. So I think that in itself speaks volume for where Dwayne is today and where he's come from.
I love that. I think you're right. I think there was a lot of criticism on him. I think it hurt, of course, because, last year we saw what Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson did. So I think he was also often compared to that. But he's his own person. And I think Washington will rally behind him. I think so many want greatness for him. And I think a lot of people are rooting for him, Doug. I think people do.
Well, we all know you don't need but one bad word to go out there, and social media and everybody else will take that word, not even knowing the situation. Yeah. That's the problem. And fortunately, I've had an opportunity up close in person, talk to the guy, and, and we got a pretty good relationship. And, I know him pretty good. I know where his mind is. The most important thing is where his head is. And what he's done is block out all the negative out there and just deal with the positive to go forward.
I absolutely love that. And also just staying on quarterbacks, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Alex Smith. We've all thought his just recovery process. I think we're all still like mouths drop that he is back on the sidelines and wanting to play. So can you just give us any light or shedding light just on his story and him coming back?
Man, let me say this. I know in the military they give Purple Hearts. Mm-hmm. Now in football, I don't know what color heart you give this young man, but whatever it is, this guy has done some things that I thought was almost impossible. Yeah. But I think what it does is speak to the volume of who he really is, from a leadership, maturity, from a character standpoint. Yeah. You knew when Alex Smith walked in the building, this guy's a leader. You can feel it. Yeah. And what he's done, if he never played another down of football, what he has done, he has set up his kids to understand what hard work do for you. But he also has had an example for all the young people that's on this football team is what hard work does for you. And all the older folks that's walking in this building every day, you understand, you got to respect Alex Smith for what he's doing and where he is today. And to watch him out there on the field, man, running around and throwing the football, and you're shaking your head, you say, my God.
It's crazy. I mean, we all saw that documentary and just seeing what his leg was like. It's like, but you're right. I think it gives us all hope. Like, I think it gives us all hope and that we can all get through anything. I think especially with all that's going on in the world today, his story has just been one of the most inspiring, motivational stories. And I think he knows that everyone's rooting for him. And talking about rooting for a guy in Washington, I think we're also all rooting for Ron Rivera. Of course, when he came out with his cancer diagnosis, I think, it scared a lot of people. But again, just the resiliency and just everything he's done to change that culture in Washington. What's it been like working with him? And how have you seen the team and the culture change overall with the organization?
Well, I think what you've seen here, you've seen the players all buy into changing what has been.
Right.
I guess no culture, what have you. And I think the discipline part of it is there. You see the players. You don't see them late for meeting. You don't see them late for practice. You see them coming into the building.
Yeah.
And coach, you know who the coach is. You know who's in control.
Right.
And for him to be going through what he's going through, and to still be out there on that field, I think kind of speak to what kind of person he really is and what football means to him and the leadership that he has.
And that's huge. It's huge. And look, Junior Chris is a big fan of yours, Doug. He wants you to remember that. He remembers your sports shop as a kid.
Over at Tacoma Park.
I told you, Doug, you're everyone remembers. Everyone loves you. I know that speaks so many volumes for you. And I think also something that I've loved that you have done, and I want to make sure we talk about it before we end, is back in 1988, you founded the Doug Williams Foundation, which has awarded more than $100,000 in college scholarships. What has this foundation meant to you? Any new things that we can follow from the work that you're doing?
Well, unfortunately, when I left, it kind of went inactive. But when I was here, man, over in Southeast, over at Anacostia, at Blue High School, man, we had a ball after school program and just touching young people. Every Tuesday, my day off, every during the season, I went and visited schools and talked to young people, talk about how important it is to go to school, staying away from drugs and getting an education. Because I think we as athletes, it's not something that we have to do.
Right.
But I think it's something that we should, because so many people look up to us. But you got to instill in those young folks that we're not the only persons to look up to. You got to look at your preachers, your teachers, your mom, your dad, your uncle, and look at those folks as kind of your role model that you want to be like, and make somebody yourself. We just there, and I always say, the guys like myself and other guys, athletes, is not going to be at your house when you need a hug, or when you need to go to the doctor, or when you need something to eat. It's going to be somebody close to you. So you got to find those type of people around you to make sure those are people you look up to. I was fortunate to have an older brother, and I say this to this day, my oldest brother, Robert Williams, who I just talked to this morning, if it was not for Robert Williams, I don't know whether or not I'd be where I am today. But he was the guy that I wanted to be like. He went to Grambling, played baseball. He was a high school coach. I wanted to be like Robert Williams.
Yeah. I love that, Doug. I love that. Again, I appreciate your time. And I can't let you go without you telling us some of the favorite memories of that Super Bowl, Doug, when you got that Super Bowl.
Wow, man.
Take us back, Doug. Share all the beats.
You know what? The best memory would probably be after the game and walking off the field and walking into the tunnel. I didn't even know Coach Rob was at the game, but the NFL had flew Coach Rob to the game because he was quiet all week about the game. He was just asking me about practice and everything. Never said he was coming.
Yeah.
And when I walked off that field, and walked down that tunnel, I saw him, and immediately, he started crying. I started crying. And we both was hugging each other, grown men, throwing snot everywhere. But it was one of those great feelings because what he told me, he said that I didn't understand the impact of what had just happened. He said, you'll be older before you really understand. He said to him, it was like Joe Louis knocking out Matt Snelling. And that was when I learned exactly what he was talking about, I said to myself, man, that's powerful.
That's huge. I mean, that's huge. And then just going off that message, would you say today that you fully realize that impact, Doug, of what
there's no question from that, but you got to stay humble.
Yeah.
And I think the one person who reminds me of that more than anything, I got a son, DJ Williams.
Yeah.
Who's coaching actually down at the New Orleans Saints. And he's one that keep me humble because he does things and tell me stuff that kind of blows me away sometimes. Like, when he was ninth grade in high school, and I had coached at Grambling, and I'm coaching a lot of minorities, a lot of black kids. So you gotta coach them hard. You got to do some things. And and he came home one day from his football team, and and where he was going to school at the time was kind of like a bad area, and he was talking about the boys, and he said, "Dad," I said, "What, man?" He said, "You need to come over here to talk to them boys." I said, "They got coaches. Why I need to come over there?" And he said, "Daddy, because you know how to talk to them."
You give him the real talk. Is what he was saying.
Yeah, but that was a good feeling for me, because I felt like I had reached him.
Yeah,
and I think that was the most important thing for me at that time.
I absolutely love that, Doug. Again, thank you for letting me steal an hour of your day. I know you're busy prepping for this game. I appreciate you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you on. And before I let you go, just any last words for the listening audience?
No, I just want to say thanks. Number one, thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
And I'm just like anybody else who want this world to do a lot better. And it's not going to change until we change it. And we is not just Black America. We got to be white and Black America, and do what's right. Do what's in your heart. If you like me, I grew up, like I say, my mama drugged me, and that means she drugged me to church.
Yes. You were going there. The Black
I didn't have no choice, But what I'm saying is, one thing I did get out of that, sitting in there, to realize that there's only one God. There's only one heaven.
Yes.
And the fact that it's about treating people right, treating the way you want to be treated. And to me, it's the goodness of your heart. And if we out there got the goodness of the heart, and we all think we Christian, we all think we going to heaven, reach back and look at what is going on in this country, and let's do the right thing.
I love that. Reach back and look at what's going on in this country. Let's do the right thing. Doug, I have so much faith. Again, it was an honor and pleasure joining you on this show. And best wishes to the Washington football team tomorrow. Let's get this win.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kelsey.
Thanks so much. Have a great one, Doug. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.
All right, you guys just heard from the Senior Vice President of Player Development for the Washington football team, Doug Williams. We're doing back-to-back shows today. At 1 p.m., I'll be joined by former Major League Baseball player for the Atlanta Braves, Daniel Nelson. So keep with me. We did football. We're going to talk a little baseball. And then if you're still free, if you're in the DMV area at 1:30, I'll be hopping on 106.7 The Fan to preview tomorrow's Washington football versus Philadelphia Eagles game. So lots of sports talk coming on today. And I also want to give a special thank you to Chris Murray for having me on his show earlier to talk about the Washington football versus Philadelphia Eagles game tomorrow, week 1. I cannot believe football's back. We have been counting down to this message. And also, I'd be remiss. Tomorrow is a huge day. Of course, September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. It's a cause near and dear to my heart, especially for you fellas. Prostate cancer. I've got the shirt on. Tomorrow is the Dr. J. Siegel Prostate Cancer Run or Walk. It is virtual this year. I hope you all can join. You can sign up for free. Again, prostate cancer screenings. Please, please, please. Chesapeake Urology offers them for free screenings for your prostate. Please, please, please. Early detection is key. Make sure you support that great cause. And as always, I want to thank Chesapeake Urology and Zero Cancer for always having me a part of that event. It's always one of my favorite events of the year. I'm sad I won't see so many faces in person, but still glad I'll be able to join you all virtually. All right, 1 p.m. We'll be back with Daniel Nelson. Thanks as always for joining me on Listening with KNN. And also check out the audio version of the show that's available on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. A new show drops every Tuesday. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
You used to hear me on your airwaves or hear me on my hit podcast, but now I'm taking you to the screen. You'll love Elevator Thoughts. We will talk the latest trending in sports. It's game time. What better way to get to know those that visit the show than over some good food and drink? It's time for confessions.